We can't say the future without AI. I mean, there's no way around it. 50% of workers now believe AI is going to improve their experience. When I come into the meeting room, I need a way to incorporate my AI with what's going on in the meeting. It's almost a bring your own AI type of a concept. Most of what we do in our day-to-day is going to change significantly.
Hear the latest AV trends and predictions in this episode of Crestron's Smarter Spaces podcast on your preferred podcast platform.
How many customers are going to care? Are they going to want to upgrade to the new one to maintain integration?
I have some clients who it's really important to them because they have a second home and they're coming home in the summer and they want to have the house cooled down or back from skiing and they want to have the house heated up or the apartment heated up before they get home. They're going to care. They're going to want to replace it because the remote abilities is really what was important to them, not necessarily, oh, I'm sitting on the couch. I don't want to get up to change the thermostat. But listen, no one wants to get up and change a TV channel anymore either.
Especially when there's chips on your belly, you know?
Yeah.
Exactly. God, who would want to give that up?
Well, how am I supposed to watch TV without a remote?
Simple. You just get up and change the channel.
Don't even joke like that.
On this episode of ResiWeek, we talk Nest ending support, OneVision conversations, and Jetbuilt tariffs. All this and more on this episode of ResiWeek. This is ResiWeek, episode 482, Bitter Questions. Welcome to this episode of ResiWeek. This is your weekly roundup of all the latest news and stories for the residential AV industry. I'm your host, Matt D. Scott for AVNation.tv, and this week I'm pleased to be joined by two of my good friends. First, we have Mr. Todd Puma. He's the president of the Source Home Theater. How you doing, Todd?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me, Matt.
Thank you for being here. Then we have his partner in crime, Mr. Mark Feinberg. He's the president of Home Theater Advisors. How you doing, sir?
Doing great, Matt. Thanks for having me on again.
Thank you both for being here. All right, we are going to kick this off with a story that actually surprised me a little bit coming from CE Pro. Google is ending support for early Nest learning thermostats starting October 25th. Google will end software updates and smart control features for the first and second generation Nest learning thermostat. You can go read through the article. You'll get all the information there. I'll give you just a quick download. As I said, they're going to cancel support on those, which means cloud support is done. We're assuming that integration support for third-party vendors is also done because the cloud is done, et cetera, et cetera. If you are one of those thermostat holders, as a US user, they're going to offer you $130 off the new 4th gen. Canadian users will get $160 off, which equates to more like $90 off, but that's okay. European users will receive a 50% off a different system that is compatible with Google Home because they're modifying their go-to-market strategy in Europe. This is, again, a combination of an old product with old processing that cost a lot to maintain, et cetera, et cetera. Todd, let me start with you on this. How do we as integrators go about handling this? Because we're not going to get the emails for our customers. They will, and then they're going to come to you as dealer and say, what the heck does this mean? Why'd you do this to me?
Yeah.
How do we handle it?
We should be getting used to this by now. It seems like that all we're dealing with is the manufacturer going directly to the end user. Now, Nest is end user brand. It's always been end user brand, and it's a phenomenal product. It's just something that I've never got to work with because we didn't have integration with it as being a Crestron dealer. So I had it in my home, took it out, put in other products like Crestron's thermostats and worked with them. Now, with solutions like this and products like this, I always tell my customer, just like at Crestron, you're held hostage to that manufacturer until something changes. Now, thermostats, people are used to having them for their whole lives, right? It's even older than their homes sometimes. They replace the whole AC unit and everything. So when you're telling them a thermostat needs to be changed, you got to get them back to the basics. At this point in time, it's not like you can't use it. You can use it. It's just going to be a thermostat. It's no longer going to have that functionality where you're able to control it before you get home and, turn it off while you leave. It's just going to be a handheld standard thermostat. Go back to the, what was it, 2000s, I guess?
Right, exactly.
Save Mark Freeze.
I wanted to ask you if customers are getting used to this, but I'm also curious how many customers are going to care. Are they going to want to upgrade to the new one to maintain integration, or are the majority of customers who get this email saying, you know, again, your smart thermostat is now a dumb thermostat, are they going to go, okay, cool, fine. I don't need to get it from my phone. I can actually get it, you know, when I randomly walk by it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the clients who are going to care, I have some clients who it's really important to them because they have a second home and they're coming home in the summer and they want to have the house cooled down or back from skiing and they want to have the house heated up or the apartment heated up before they get home. They're going to care. They're going to want to replace it because the remote abilities is really what was important to them, not necessarily, oh, I'm sitting on the couch, I don't want to get up to change the thermostat. But listen, no one wants to get up and change a TV channel anymore either. No one.
I don't want to do that.
No one can get up and change a TV channel anymore. You can't walk up to the box and do that anymore.
Especially when there's chips on your belly, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. God, who would want to give that up? Spill all those crumbs everywhere. So yeah, I mean, I think there are definitely be people who are going to want to upgrade their thermostat, whether it be to integrate because they love the, you know, when I arm my alarm, my thermostat goes into away mode. I don't have to worry about it. I travel and when I come home, I want to have my house comfortable. But I mean, the one thing I don't know, I don't have big suburban home clients. How many thermostats are we really talking about? The list price from Google for the new thermostat is $280. They're giving $130 off. So $150 a thermostat. If they have to replace 5 of them, it's $750, which isn't terrible, but it's sort of not, you know, what Sonos did when it was $700 an amp to replace all the old Connect amps, or what, you know, a control system does when they discontinue a lighting control product and it no longer works. You've got to replace $20,000 worth of dimmers. It's going to be sub $1,000 for most people, and the people who have it, that's probably not that big of an issue.
No, because customers are used to that with the iPhones alone. They're changing them every 2 years.
That's the feeling I get every time we go in to talk about adding features because something's been taken away.
Mm-hmm.
None of my customers have ever, even with Sonos, they've never brought up so much the price as the frustration of, why are you taking stuff away? Just leave it be. They don't, I don't know. I find that the customers just don't understand, especially the younger ones, sure. But anybody who's our age and a couple, you know, a generation older than ours,
right?
They view it as Todd said, that old school thermostat on the wall that you just never had to change. It just stinking worked. Put a new 9-volt in and you're good to go. I think they're just tired of it.
I think the difference here, at least, is to Todd's point, it's not significant. It's comparable in price to what an iPhone is, and everybody replaces that every year or two.
Yeah.
To replace a house full of thermostats, right? So, or at least the ones that matter to you. Maybe you only care about the living room and the master bedroom. You replace 2 right now, and you leave 5. Who cares if the kids freeze when they get home? you leave 5 manual.
Let's take this back a notch, right? Now, what about the people who have Airbnb, right, where they're actually losing money? So it just clicked on my mind. You know, things are going to happen. Money is going to be invested unexpectedly. And this is one of those situations. Now, what would piss me off more is I had everything working and they took away all the features. Right? Meaning not discontinuing, but if, like what Sonos did, we had a lot of great features, they took it away. Technology should be improving as times go. And if you have a feature that you like, why take away that feature? It should always stay there, and then you add on top of it. That, to me, would piss me off more than having to replace thermostats. Now, the people who have the Airbnbs or have investment properties, that's going to hurt because an MDU. Now, you can think about it. If you have to change out, 47 units, that's a big bang for the buck, Yeah,
it's interesting to watch the feedback from these moves. All right, let's change topics for a second. This comes to us from Residential Systems. OneVision is launching a ProVision let me start that again. ProVision Conversations support tool. It's integrated into the ProVision software suite. It is a first of its kind conversational support tool built specifically for integrators. go read through the article. And if you've got a second or two, go watch a couple of the videos from a good friend of the show,
Jason Griffin.
Jason, thank you. My goodness. Sorry, Jason. Go watch the video or the couple of videos. It's a really interesting use of a new app to kind of control and keep everything together, as well as thread those conversations from the support standpoint. Mark, let me start with you on this one. I love this. This looks really interesting to me. Something that we could definitely use kind of across the board for most integrators. Is the challenge going to be how you integrate it into your business from a process standpoint?
Yeah, I think anytime an integrator or any company pulls in a new piece of software that tries to pull a lot of things together but doesn't pull it all together, especially if you may already be using a Trello or another, I can't think of what the other,
Asana or...
Yeah, there's a million of them out there. If you're already using something like that, and now you're moving to this because you sort of need to because you're a OneVision customer and that's what they're using, and now you won't have all the same information across. How do you work that into your processes and get everyone up to speed? Yeah, there's always a change management aspect to that. I mean, any big company that implements SAP or any ERP system has that same issue. But we are smaller companies, and we tend to be a little bit less, don't have the bandwidth to do that. I didn't watch the videos. I didn't even see the links to the videos in the article, so I just read the article. That's what I get for paying so much attention. But it seems like it's a CRM tool, a communication tool across the company and with OneVision, so everyone knows what's going on and what the history is of the client. Sounds like a great solution and something I'd love to have. I'm not a OneVision customer, so I'm not going to have it. But it seems like I can definitely see how companies would benefit from it. I just think the transition and having all that historical data maybe in another platform, and now how do you transition all that information, all that data over? Are you subscribing to two platforms now to keep that historical stuff around for a couple of years till it becomes obsolete? How does that, or is OneVision going to help with the transition to the new platform from the old one? Those are all questions to be answered.
I'm sure they thought about it all of it.
Yeah.
Anywhere
I'm sure they have.
If Jason's working there, he's a very smart guy. For many years of working with him, he's not a person that just speaks. He knows. And when it comes down to a company, he doesn't just pick any company to work for. Now, what a point Mark was making on this is the transfer, right? That's one issue. But what about the people who are just starting? They're haven't offered any solution like this before. I think it'd be great for them. Watching the videos, a couple of the videos, I like that there's data that's, kept. Number one, every bit of information, there's nothing to keep out. They voice record it, right? And there's also opportunities. They give you suggestions based upon the client, which now if a junior tech just got that and they were the one who was going to service or call back the client, they have pretty much a script at this point to work off of. And with that script means they're probably going to be a little more successful and not pissing off the client. Yeah. I think at the end of one of the videos, they said the customer was so happy that they didn't destroy movie night. And, thank you for saving movie night. It's a big night. Family time is important. And, to have a service, like say, for instance, now I'm dealing with my family and I missed the call because I'm at, my kid's concert or something like that. Now that call's missed. Their call is very important. They're the people paving the way for my future, my clients. And to give an opportunity where I have my quality of life, my employees have their quality of life, and someone else is just filling in the gap until one of us have the time, I think it's a great solution. I think that at first with Parasol and companies similar to that, I was questioning it because I can handle it. I don't need to do that. I don't need to charge my customers more. But I believe at this day and age and how things are going, it's something that's necessarily needed at this point. Not like a Nest, fee or anything like that. But, it's a solution that you're going to want to have. And I think with OneVision is a company that's been around for a long time and they have a lot of credibility.
Todd, is this something that more integrators should look at, even just from the sake of having someone else organize all this information for them, right? As far as literally having a template, because that's where we fall short a lot.
Well, that's the thing is a lot of integrators think they know it all. and they don't want to learn it all. And I believe partially it's the fault of the manufacturer, because every time someone gets on the phone with them just to ask questions, they're trying to sell. Now, answer the questions, make people comfortable, and make them make that decision if they're going to buy or not. I remember there was this one company that is a useless organization, and all they used to do is constantly call me every couple of months and see if I wanted to join this group. For me, maybe I passed up on a great opportunity. I don't know, but it just annoys me that I'm getting phone calls every 2 minutes, because I don't do that to my clients. I don't like it done to me, and it's something that needs to stop with the manufacturing process. But if they are communicating with the dealers, offering opportunities and giving real, world scenarios on how they've been successful and how they could help out the integrator based on whatever brands that they're selling, I think that it's an offering that, should be considered, or at least like looked into. There's a couple of brands out there. Companies like Parasol, OneVision are paving the way. But I do believe that it's going to be a standard that we're all going to need. A small company would need it. Personally, I think small companies need it more than large companies because we don't have the manpower. And others might disagree, but it's something to get your life back. When you've been doing it as long as we have, you get tired after a while, especially answering stupid questions like my whole system isn't working. Okay, well, explain to me what's happening. My cable box doesn't work. So that's not your whole system. That's literally 1% of your system. And you start getting bitter, in a sense, to these kind of questions, because you're not bitter that they're asking the question. You're bitter that it's taking up a lot of your time over most of the time, a conversation you already had. Let companies like them deal with this, because that's what they're there for, and get your life back.
Well, it's also, Todd, to your point, like when you first get started, maybe you have 50 installed systems. If each system has one issue a year, you got a call a week, not a big deal. You can deal with it. You start to get to the point where you have 500 systems. Now you're getting 10 calls a week on average. That's that big. You can't manage that all, especially if you're a smaller company. So having a third party to help you do that and keep all that communication unified and up to date, which is what this system is doing, so that everyone within the company and at OneVision sees the history of what happened with that client and what's going on and what are the problem children. It's the Apple TV in the master bedroom that's always the problem. Maybe we should replace it, or we should place the cables to it or something. That's invaluable information to make your life better and to make the client's life better. Yeah, they don't want to call for support either.
I agree with that. And I was just thinking, while you're stating that, is how many times have we finished multiple jobs at the same exact time, and the customer is going through the learning curve, right? So you're not able to answer every single one of their phone calls, or, even if you don't have the time, you might not want to answer every phone call coming in one after another. So there's a value to that service, just like the customer's hiring us and they see the value and they're willing to invest into that. We also need to take our own advice, and we need to invest into getting our lives back. And solutions like this just give you your life back. Not to the full point. Customers are going to call you if they want, no matter what. They're always going to bypass it and then try to get right to the source. But the reality is, if you have something and you set a standard from the beginning, they're going to utilize this tool and never come directly to you, as long as they're doing a good job, which I believe they would.
No, it's a fantastic tool. Go check it out. Talk to Jason and his team. It's great stuff. All right, let's hit our last story of the day. We can't have an episode without talking about tariffs. This comes to us from CE Pro. Jetbuilt adds tariff price alerts, among other resources, to their management software. It's supposed to help integrators lock in prices and communicate with manufacturers as you're going about your daily business. The idea is that you'll get a notification when a cost increase is detected due to tariffs based on quotes you have out, as well as stuff through the course of proposing those products. Todd, let me start with you on this. In principle, I love this. I think it's fantastic. In practice, I'm curious how effective it will be, based on the fact that, in my experience, distributors, manufacturers, etc., are not always the most clear as to how they're managing price increases in general, let alone the volatility that comes with the current tariff landscape, we'll say, across the board. Do you think we're kind of getting a little carried away with the tariff conversation, or is the fear and uncertainty justified?
I think that it's based on the application or the person individualized. If you're a new company, you're going to worry about this because you're still trying to pave the way and, build a standard for your company. But if you've been doing this for a long time, it is intimidating. It is scary to not know what's coming to you. But I think a lot of it is fear mongering. And I think a lot of it needs to be not say ignored, but kind of just take the information in that makes sense. They're going back and forth. They're negotiating. It's like an argument between mom and dad. You just don't get involved. At the end of the day, they're going to love each other. So we need you to sit. We need to just sit back and relax and enjoy the show. I don't think it's going to be as bad. But what I do think it's going to be bad is these manufacturers are going to utilize this as a tool. And they're going to raise pricing, even if they don't have to. Even on companies that don't have tariffs, they're going to put tariffs on, people just because they want to get back some of that money. It's a great opportunity for dishonest companies.
That's a bold take, but I like it. Before I get to your question, Mark, I noticed that, and again, I'm in Canada. I realize that is a difference for a lot of our listeners.
Well, for now.
Ooh. Make me an offer. Make me an offer, Mark. We've watched almost all of our manufacturers and suppliers issue some form of tariff claim. And I called out one of them the other day because we were trying to order some stuff. And they're like, well, there's a 25% tariff on this. And I said, you source that out of the States? And they said, no. I'm like, yeah, I thought so. That comes direct from Asia into Vancouver. Well, yeah, it does. Then why is it getting a 25% tariff put on U.S. products? Well, it's a U.S. company.
That's not how tariffs work.
That's not how it works, guys. To Todd's point, and I'm not going to tell you who it was, but if you hear this, yeah, I caught you. I saw it. Mark, when you see this, again, kind of to Todd's point, I'm to the point where I almost feel like this is somewhat like the gas tax, the fuel surcharges that we used to get in the mid 2000s, where gas went up. All of a sudden, all of the manufacturers, the suppliers, heck, UPS and FedEx added that little, 5 to 7% fuel surplus that just never really went away. And again, I understand that there are some tariffs that are coming in and there are some that will stay. But I also feel that we don't have the transparency here with most of our vendors. Is that what you're seeing? Would you equate it to that? Or do you see something different?
Well, I think the challenge, and what I like what Jetbuilt is trying to do, is that there's a lot of uncertainty. This has gone back and forth so many times. Like, I know there's a big tariff on stuff coming in from China. I think there's a 10% across the board for every country except for Canada and Mexico. And in Canada and Mexico, it used to be 25%, but now it's only stuff that's not subject to the USMCA. I sort of don't know where it should be. So having Jetbuilt trying at least to track that for me and give me a sense of what's coming in. So, when I know a price increase is happening on a proposal that's already out there, yes, I have the language in my proposals. If the price changes, it can go up. But having Jetbuilt doing that for me, I think would be great. Just so I don't end up underwater on something. And I think and I think to your point, Matt, with the gas tax, I think once a manufacturer raises their price to account for the tariffs, that price is never going down, even if the tariff goes away.
It's really rare. Yeah. It seems to be very rare.
Yeah. I would rather see the line item, tariff charge, so that a year from now, if that tariff does go away, I can call them on it at least. Yeah. I can't call them on, hey, it's harder to call them on, hey, your price went up last year because of tariffs and you never brought it down, because no one ever lowers their price. But if there's a line item I can pick on, I would rather see that. I know, I was really impressed when one of my a Canadian manufacturer, had that line item on their invoices, and when Trump agreed to abide by USMCA, they just took that line off because they were now not subject to the tariff. And instead of having a price increase, not to rescind the price increase, they just deleted the line from the invoices, which made it a lot more transparent. So I appreciate that transparency if manufacturers could be more like that.
Is this changing the way that either of you are doing business or going to market?
The only thing that's changing right now is I am reaching out to clients who are either have outstanding proposals that they have not yet approved or have approved proposals and we haven't ordered the product yet, and encouraging them to either approve the proposal and get the invoice, or pay the product invoice if they've already approved the proposal, so that we aren't worrying about this. Let me just send me the check. Let me order everything. I will warehouse it. I'll hold on to it. You're not worried about price increases going forward. And that I am seeing quite a bump in business over the last month or so for that reason. It's probably going to cost. I'm basically stuffing the channel in this quarter. It's probably going to cost me next quarter. But I'm seeing a lot of people are just it resonates with them. Like, I don't want this uncertainty. Yeah, just order everything now.
It's honestly, I had a couple of situations that just occurred from it because of bad communication from a manufacturer. So I actually went to the majority of my clients and I told them that if they purchase, before May 1st, they won't have the tariff tax, which would be an additional 5%. That's not the case. It's actually turned into that once the order is shipped, that's when it comes to play. Now, should I have read the fine print? Yeah, I should have. But I was being told from someone I trust that this was the case and passed it on to my customers. Now I'm eating it because I can't go back to the clients that did their part, right? They honored their end and now put the 5% on top of it. I have to go and now eat that 5%. Like Mark said, you don't want to go underwater for something like this. And, I believe that there's going to be no tool that's going to tell you how and what we need to do. It's like it's always been, you're on your own. How are you going to run your business? How are you going to keep your business afloat? How are you going to keep your guys eating? And how are you going to keep your customers happy? That's all that matters. It's fear driven. People are afraid to invest money. My jobs have went down with the price points, and customers are waiting a little bit longer before they give you the yes. At this point, it doesn't matter if they're super wealthy or they're just middle class. They're holding onto their money a little tight until there's more information out there and more stability.
Yeah. And to that point, Todd, that's one of my bigger concerns is that on a project we tend to be the first thing cut, right? The client needs to save money, and when wood starts going up and metal starts going up and everything else you're using to build the house is more expensive, what's going to happen to our budgets? I'm definitely concerned about that.
Well, they're going to be Todd's favorite artist. Yeah, the interesting side that we've seen, kind of to wrap this up and put a bow on it, is we've seen customers pulling back a little bit. We've seen a lot of customers who were trying to jump in early and get stuff done, but again, to Todd's point, there's some stuff that isn't shipping, and it's not shipping for a while, and it will be assessed upon shipment. Not even though we've paid for it, it's not going to necessarily matter. Now, maybe things will change and that tariff may not apply, and maybe it'll work out. But I'm finding that typically we can have good conversations with customers about, product changes, fluctuations, all those fun things that come up day to day. This is one no one's having a friendly banter over. Everyone's, shall we say, fussy.
Because it gets political. You're right on the edge of,
it becomes a political conversation really fast.
Right.
It's fun. All right, gentlemen, let's leave it there. Thank you both so much for joining us. Mark, if people want to connect with you, learn more about Home Theater Advisors, where can they do that?
Best thing is hometheateradvisors.com, and they can reach me at mark@hometheateradvisors.com.
Thank you, sir. Todd, if people want to connect with you, learn more about the Source Home Theater, where can they do that?
They could go to my website, thesourcehometheater.com. And if they want to reach out to me, just go to the info area and one of my staff will get back to you on OneVision, mine too. Yeah.
Very nice. All right, gentlemen, thank you again for joining us. Thank you for tuning in. If you'd like to connect with me, you can find me at Matt D. Scott on most of the socials. But more importantly, please visit AVNation.tv, where you'll find this show as well as a wide variety of other shows with all the verticals that we cover. When you visit the website, please take a moment to check out our supporters. We are extremely thankful for their support and ask that you check them out as well. Thanks again for watching. That's all the time we have for this episode of ResiWeek.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
Hi, this is Jennifer Goodyear
and Erica Carroll
from the Women in AV podcast, where we are encouraged by the incredible stories of women in AV.
Listen in on fun, empowering conversations as we chat with inspiring women, breaking barriers and creating their own path in the industry.
Check out Women in AV on avnation.tv or wherever you get your podcasts.